Ah, I am a very happy person right now. I am very privileged for being where I am. I think just someone who is trying to make use of what I have every day and use that to hopefully fulfill my sense of mission and help other people around me find their fulfillment. And I enjoy the journey. I think that's who I am. Maybe that's my top of mind abstract answer. I think primarily for myself, it's a little bit circular, but really for me, every day, I'm just hoping to live each day without letting what I have go to waste. I think I've been blessed with a lot. I think my parents gave me good genes. I have been super fortunate in my life to have the opportunities to go to school with people like you, to have the jobs that I have, to travel to places like I do. I'm sitting in this beautiful hotel in London now, right? I have all of these resources that I endowed or by luck got. And I think the sense of mission may be the wrong word, but the sense of obligation I feel in every day that I live is to make sure that everything that I have do not go to waste and that I put them to good use. And if I can do that every day, then I'm a happy person. And right now I feel pretty happy. I have no regrets. Yeah. And I feel like I'm trying my best and I'm hopeful about the future. I think that's the happiness that I feel. Ah, um, I think I'm a very confident person, sometimes overly so, but my confidence is one of the most prominent features of me. And I get that a lot because we just did our, end of year feedback and review with people that I work with. Um, and that's part of the reason why it's top of mind. I think people always find that my confidence, if we were to only look at the positive side of it, reassuring and charismatic, and I think gives people comfort. Yeah. It feels natural. I think I was partially born with it. I don't know if I told you, I have a Chinese name that is highly unusual. Do you know what my Chinese name is? Yeah, so my Chinese name is Chang Shuai, right? So Chang is my family name, but if you were to force a meaning onto it in modern Chinese, it means basically is often. And then my first name is Strai, which in Chinese means handsome, even though it also in older Chinese means the commander of an army. So whether in the modern interpretation or in the older interpretation, my name is very, very masculine. And I think I embodied that in my upbringing. My parents always, this sounds like a cultural stereotypical framing, but I think they always wanted to raise me as a charismatic, sort of boyish leader. And I think and because of my name is unusual, people always remember me. And so a lot of these factors converged such that it has become something that feels natural to me. I was raised to like always have an opinion, to always express it, and in the few occasions I think when it wasn't necessarily when the environment around me pushed back against my early assertiveness when I was younger, I insisted upon it. I was like, no, but this is me. So I think that just stayed with me. Hmm. Well, first of all, I see beauty in everywhere around me in London on the street. But behind that, I think is just I see beauty in in artistry, in thoughtfulness, in craftsmanship, in thriving and pushing in no particular order, all of these things. But I think it's either characteristics that people exhibit, again, when they make use of the talent that they have, or something that describes the outcome of that. Right? So I think the things that I find beautiful are, in more crude terms, really thoughtful thinking, really careful making in that process, right? And the outcome of that. I find deep thinkers really beautiful. I find articulate humans beautiful. I find people with a lot of creative energy and their product beautiful. I think it's probably just overall a celebration of like what our brains can do, the potential and the outcome of it. I think, for instance, when I walk around the street and look at all the beautiful buildings in London, first of all, you appreciate just how physically gorgeous the buildings are. But I think what is more beautiful to me is, gosh, like the people behind these designs, the people who thought about how to design all of these things, and the manifestation of that and how it looks after all of these years. And the people who then also inherited that and preserved it this way, right? I think a core tenet of who I see as a person also is that I am not bound by a certain geography. So I grew up in Asia. I lived a third of my life, but it feels more in the US. And I travel very frequently, as you know, between the US and Europe. I spend a big part of my life with someone who is European. And so I think a lot of my identity is built upon this very multicultural um, composition that is not limited by geography. And I always have this desire to go to new places and to see how I feel in those environments and like fall in love with new sides. So I think my relationship with places is one of just ongoing exploration. And as I get older, I begin to return to places that I like more. Whereas when I was younger, it was always about, okay, let me try to put more things let me try to mark more unvisited places on the map so I can almost like claim it, right? But I think as I get older, it's more about, now it's less about occupying more space, but let me revisit the place deeply that I liked. When I go to a new place, I'm kind of just restless. I just want to be on my feet and wonder and get a sense of the space and like see everything and observe people. I look a lot at the people on the street, what they're wearing, how they're talking, how they interact with each other. I get a lot of like joy from that. Even yesterday, because I invest in consumer companies now. Even yesterday, when I was on the cab ride from Heathrow to my hotel, I was paying a lot of attention just to the advertisement boards on the side of the highway to see how they're designed and how they're trying to appeal to people who live in London, right? And what are the products that are trending? What are the schemes? Like all of that is really interesting to me. So even though London is a familiar place, I think this is my mold of discovery that I tend to be in when I'm in a new place. What I get when I go to familiar places, one is ongoing discovery, but two is just a sense of reconnecting with who I am in places where I feel the most comfortable. So I think the prime example is my favorite place in the world. A lot of my good friends know is Switzerland. And there is a place where you go to Interlaken, right? You take the train up, you go to Kleine Scheidegg, and then up there you have all of these three really beautiful peaks. I tried to spend at least every other summer there hiking. And I mean, the mountains are the mountains, they don't change. But I think I revisit it for how I feel when I'm in front of the mountains, right? They're just so enormous and so gorgeous. And it makes me feel at the same time like in awe and like incredulous that I can be in the presence of this kind of a thing. And two, just like it's a great sense of relief that all of the other things don't matter. I feel okay. Maybe this sums it up better. The way I think about Switzerland is I'm happy that there's a place in the world like that that is always beautiful and I can always go to. It feels like my spiritual homeland. Does that make sense? Yeah. It's like a place of comfort. This is a great point that you're picking up on. I think a state of being that I enjoy for myself is when I'm in the presence of something that I really aspire to or that I really admire, that I'm in all of. That's a good state that I enjoy being in. Does that make sense? Like I enjoy being in the presence of great people and just admiring how their minds work. I enjoy in the presence of great natural beauty and so that I can forget about myself and just like completely soak in the majesty that the mountains are. So I think that's where, yeah. I mean, you're hitting on points that I didn't know before, Alex. Well done. I think I enjoy being in the presence of greatness, a sense of aspiration. I think this goes back to the beginning, our first conversation of who am I, right? I think my aspiration is to be someone who is always striving to be better. It's not a particular destination. My aspiration is not to make X sum of money or become X title or to do whatever. I think my aspiration is to make the best use of what I am given and in that process every day trying to be that. So in a way it's a more achievable aspiration, you know? And I can practice that every day. But sometimes, again, as I've gotten older, my reflection is that this orientation towards excellence that I have, which a lot of people like us also have, is very much a double-edged sword. And so I've grown a lot from the extremeness of this pursuit, and how I do not like it sometimes. So yeah, I think there is a wrinkle in that aspiration too. Because you can't, you can, what I've come to learn is you can always be better. There's always more to do, but you can never really achieve perfection. And maybe it is possible, but in that process, I'd probably like kill myself. You know, it's, and also, well, so let me step back. I think the two things that I've learned about this excellence orientation is one, if I try to apply it to everything that I do, it can be too much for myself. I hold myself to a bar that is too perfectionist and that is not healthy, like mentally highly unhealthy. And I've learned from that. And the second thing that I learned about it is if that is my orientation, intentionally or inadvertently, I hold other people around me to the same bar, and that is also socially not healthy. Yeah. Being at peace with oneself. This idea came to mind first from following what we were just talking about. I think the happiest person is someone who just genuinely and completely likes him or herself. Which sounds a little bit egotistical, but truly, if every day you're like, oh, I'm great. I am, I may not be the most successful or beautiful or smart or wealthy, whatever it is, right? Like insert any adjective, but I like me. I think that is so hard to achieve and so awesome. I like that I have like an insatiable curiosity about a lot of things. I'm endlessly curious about people. in the same vein that which is why I appreciate what you're doing so much, right? I'm trying to, that's why I was a psych major. I'm always trying to understand people better because I think that's beautiful thing. That's a beautiful thing. That I like. I like that I have this curiosity. And I like that I am super driven. I always want to do better. I never take what I have for granted. And I think I can always do better. And so I never stop. And I like that. I think my parents I inherited this. My parents just gave me good faculties. I grew up dancing, as you know. I was just naturally very flexible. I didn't have to work too hard for it. I inherited a good enough brain that allows me to learn things like languages easily, which enable conversations like the one you and I are having, right? And so, yeah, probably these things. Yeah, it fits in so perfectly that it's like almost that's it. I have a dream job. It fits in perfectly because I told you about I love the endless exploration of other people and other places. And so there are three things that I do. I am a consumer investor, so I get to think all day about what are the brands that make people tick and what are the brands that are aspirational and why. So that's one piece. I now manage a mini team of consumer insights in China. And that my mandate there entirely is to think about where is the market going next, right? Why do people related to the first, but in a more through a more macro lens, where is the consumer market going? What is going to become the future of how people live their lives and eat and what they wear and what they put on their faces and how they shop and how they treat their pets and so on. So it's all about thinking. And I love that. And the last bit of what I do is I bring companies that we invest in into new markets. So that's part of the reason why I'm here in London. I'm meeting with a couple brands that we have invested in that are through our help going into the Chinese market. And so there is an element of making use of the multicultural identity and knowledge that I have to help other people. Right? So the job that I have enables me to do a lot of the things that I love doing. It allows me to think deeply about people. It allows me to play the role of a sort of an international connector. It allows me to explore new places and talk to new entrepreneurs and challenge myself in thinking about harder questions and more importantly, defining what those questions are. That's why, frankly, I have nothing to complain about. I'm very happy with my job, and I spend too much time doing it. Honestly, what I need to do with regard to my work-life balance is I need to enjoy my job a little bit less, so I can spend more of my time on non-job related things. Reading and reading things that are not geopolitical news or consumer news. Reading nonfiction and fictional pieces and things like that. Hiking. I love being in nature. I love catching up with friends like you. Chiefly these things. Yeah. I think the seeds were planted when I was very young. Again, I think this goes back to dancing. So when I was young, I started dancing when I was 5 or 6, and then I was a part of this like a children's art group that got invited to a lot of places to perform. So when I was really young, I went to Australia and France and North Korea and like Hong Kong and all of these other Singapore, the Philippines, before I became a teenager, or well, actually in my early teens too. And that gave me a sense of possibility, even though my parents were never educated abroad, right? They had always lived all of their lives in China. And so, in fact, I think one of my dad's regrets is never really being educated abroad because he had neither the resources, not even the mind to think about the possibility of it in his time. And so I think it's this sense of, wow, when I'm the rest of the world is so interesting. That exposure when I was so young through dancing, and knowing that and thinking about how my life would have been different. For instance, if my parents did live a portion of their lives abroad, I think those two things drove me to always know that those two things determined that I had always known that I didn't want to, for instance, stay in China for college. Those things also drove me to study English really hard, because I wanted to have the basic skills to connect well with people outside, and that one thing led to another. And now being back, this is the twist in the story. I never actually imagined this would happen. So again, taking a step back, I think my macro reflection on life and the way I've lived it is, when I was in my early 20s, when we were just graduating from college, I had everything perfectly planned out. I was going to spend, right, X years working at McKinsey, and then X years going back to get my business degree, right? And then I'm going to do whatever. Um, and then I think, having carefully planned my life for a couple of years right out of college and see that play out, gave me enough comfort that I don't have to overplan. And sometimes the beauty lies in not planning and just go with the flow, and resting on the confidence that whatever happens, you'll be okay. I think I lived through life enough, and with enough luck, that I known that even if I just let things happen to me with thoughtful decisions, obviously, I will be okay, and I may end up in a more interesting and surprising spot, which is what happened after I left McKinsey, and which is also why I said yes to moving back to China after I got my business degree. And it's been wonderful. And so now I don't have like a 5-year plan or a 10-year plan, even though that used to be my mode of operation. But I'm open to the surprise of it. And again, I knew that wherever I go, I can build a good life. And I'm open to the possibilities. I think these things that we were discussing have always been true and very strong in me. I think I have been someone who is always very certain of, I don't know, I'm a strong person, I think. By that I mean, I'm not strength wise. I mean, my personality is pretty strong. What I like and do not like are pretty strong. But what I have learned to cultivate over time is the ability to understand who I am and articulate it. I think I've always been largely consistently the same person from when I was a child to now. I've always been stubborn. I've always been opinionated. I've always wanted more. But I think over time, as I've gotten older, I learned to understand myself better and capture and express it and understand the positives and the negatives of who I am better. I'm definitely expanding. I think every year brings new possibilities and new skill sets and new things I've never done before. So, like, for instance, recently, and this is the part where it gets uncomfortably braggy, we are talking about at the beginning. I recently just closed the first investment that I sourced and led and thought about in my life. And I'm very proud of it. And I'm joining the board of a company. And this is something that I've never done before. And it feels like I'm jumping into shoes that are too big for me, to be honest. But what makes me feel great about it is I don't feel any sense of imposter syndrome about it, because I knew I did it. And I feel like I'm the right person to do it. So to answer your question in short, I definitely feel like I'm expanding. But what I'm grappling with is, we also touched on this earlier, is I enjoy my job and my professional life so much that it's all of my life now. I think eventually I need to rewire, not rewire my brain, but reorient it, the way I spend my time, to one, spend more time doing things that are, we talked about, non-job related, and to think more about, as a person, not just as a professional, where do I want to build a life? Where do I want to live, right? Where do I want to build a family? I need to begin to think more about it, um, as I enter the next life stage, I think. Now, exactly when marks the end of this and the beginning of that, I don't know. Hmm. I'm not gonna talk about how I see differently from other people because I don't think I know how other people see things, but I think I see things now differently for myself than I did when I was younger. I think over the last 40 minutes, I think I mentioned a lot this notion of as I've gotten older and how I think about things now, because I truly think in the last 2 to 3 years, a lot of how I think about my priorities, my values, how I want to live my life have changed. And I'm gonna steal I'm actually I think something about this shift, or this shift can be really well captured by something that I think George Saunders said. I think I'm stealing this from someone. I'll find the right person to give credit to this later. But I think when I was younger, I really valued cleverness. But when I'm older now, marginally, what I value more is kindness. Right? I think when I was younger, I was always trying to be the clever one, and I think we all did. But I think now that I'm older, I've come to realize the clever person's downfall and the clever person's pitiable sides. And so now I think it's this self acceptance and what we talked about, the being at peace with oneself and knowing that every life path and every personality trait has its positives and negatives. I think that understanding leads to kindness and empathy and understanding. And that I find is a much more valuable trait now. I sound like an old woman and a grandma, and part of that is I feel like one, but I think now something that I tell myself repeatedly is kindness over cleverness. Because I think I I'd always try to be clever, and that drove me. And you can never be clever enough. You can always do better. This goes back to the perfectionist note that we hit on earlier. I realized the pursuit of that in a very single minded way is dangerous and unhealthy. And I got to a place where I was very unhappy with myself because you can never be good enough at it, or you can never get to the maximum of it. I think all of us, there is something, especially high achieving and sort of um, intelligent, sort of high achieving people. Everybody has something that they obsess about. There's always something that drives everybody, right? And I think that's a good thing in moderation. But too much of it is not good. For me, that thing was like trying to be excellent. Huh. I would have a museum of my favorite people. And I would put Alex in it. I would probably have a museum of my favorite people. That's what I love the most. And it's both people that I know and people whose talent that I admire the most. Yeah. People like Virginia Woolf, people like Stephen Sondheim, right? People like, who else can I think of? Michael Cunningham, who wrote The Hours, which is such a beautiful novel. Um, Tolkien, who wrote, and J.K. Rowling, who wrote Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter. And then obviously my friends that I love. It would be, I would love to walk through an exhibition of all of the people that I admire and love. Truly, that would say a lot about me. Just what I attribute value to. It's a celebration of everything that I find valuable. And this goes back to the people thing, right? Always goes back to the people. I admire the creative minds and the genius in human mind that enable the creation of a lot of great artworks. The novels, the paintings, the musicals, the dances, right? I'm grateful, Alex. I'm grateful just the good support network that I have. Um, yeah, I have the best friends. I'm someone who in my friendships that I one thing that I value almost more than anything else is loyalty. And by that I mean the longevity of friendships. So you and I, we've known each other since freshman year, and we don't talk that often, but I feel very close to you. Um, because you always have a place in my heart, and it's something that I take pride of is that I hold important people in my heart always. And I live in Shanghai now, and some of my best friends I have known since why because I started dancing with them. I've known them since when I was 5 or 6, and they're still my best friends. And so I think most of all, I'm grateful for the long-lived relationships and friendships that I've had. That's my source of stability and grounding and knowing who I am and a part of my identity too. In that I think of myself as someone who keeps good people around and I don't lose them. Ah, that's unexpected. Depends on who you ask. I know everything about me. I think different people find different things unexpected. I think my work friends, my colleagues probably find my dance history really unexpected. I think my, artsy friends probably find my career driven side really unexpected. And I like that. I like that they're like different sides of me, even though right now I'm neglecting the artsy side a little bit more. But I think, yeah, different people who know me in different contexts would find different parts of me surprising. I wanted to say, I think the people that I work with may find it surprising what kind of a friend I am, but I don't know if that, but I feel like in that regard and how I treat people, I'm relatively more consistent. And so I don't know if that's unexpected or surprising. Yeah, because at work I'm pretty. It's about being professional and being a matter of fact and all of that, right? But I think as a friend, I'm a lot more empathetic and touchy feely and sort of supportive. But I think even when I'm at work, I try to be more that way too. I mean, you're only asking, oh, but this is in the framing. I'm cheating because you define the scope of this conversation as about the celebrations and what I like about me, right? What you didn't ask as much about, but I think I volunteered answers are what I don't like about what I sometimes think are good about me and what are the downsides of the positive traits. But I think I try to balance that out. It's not all positive. Everything have two sides. No, I feel like I have everything that I need. And you've been more than a good friend. I feel like I mean, we've gone through this. I know I can always call you and I can always talk to you if I want to cry. I don't have anything more to ask. I think it's good enough that I have people like that. I'm just very grateful for you. We've known each other for so long. You've been so wonderful. You're a constant source of comfort and support and giggles and empathy. Like truly, we don't talk that much, but I always feel like you feel like home.